There are certain murmurs lingering around the trade rumours world in the AFL, and it has to do with a certain player, Adelaide, who used to play for Collingwood, and that is Mark Keane. The rumour is that Collingwood are looking to offer Mark Keane $600,000 as he's still in contract with Adelaide until the end of 2025. It means we're likely to probably give away a first round pick or maybe a couple of second rounders or something like that. I'm not too privy to how the drafts would work when it comes to giving away picks for certain players, but there's obviously a conversation there as he is within the contract at Adelaide. With Mark Keane, he's 24 years old, he's 194 centimetres, and he's 6'4.5". So he does fit that role of the key defender, probably more suitable to the second key tall defender that Billy Frampton is now currently occupying. And for those of you that don't know, Mark Keane joined Collingwood initially as a Category B rookie after a 2-week trial. Very similar to what we've seen with Will Parker, who's actually just been named for Collingwood this weekend against the Dockers. So similar pathways. Mark Keane ended up playing 5 games for Collingwood during his time, and then he was admittedly homesick, went back to Ireland. I think he played some Gaelic football there, and now has returned to the AFL scene. He's now played 14 games for Adelaide and is really thriving in the role that he is asked to compete in. So let's break down what his season has looked like thus far and how does that compare against players that he would be competing with at Collingwood for the role that is needed. We'll start off with his game most recently against Collingwood. He held his own. He had 20 disposals, 8 intercept possessions, and 7 contested possessions, which may have been a season high for him and was obviously a hotly contested game. So he was able to hold up against the Pies, but his best game of the season so far was back in round 3 against Fremantle. He had 26 disposals, going at 92% disposal efficiency, 3 intercept marks, 4 score involvements. He earned coaches' votes, and he was the highest rated Adelaide Crows player for that game. What these stats tell me at the moment is he's quite well balanced. He's not just one or the other. He's not a lockdown defender, or he's not a feed him the ball and he'll get us the score involvements and the rebound 50s. He can almost do it all. And at age 24, with an Irish background, only playing 19 games of AFL football, suggests that there's so much room for growth. And he's finally hit that age of maturity where maybe the homesickness isn't something that's going to quell his improvement moving forward. So a really good look in. We've got players that we'd like to compare him against. So Billy Frampton. Now with Billy Frampton, he is more of that lockdown key defender. Our second key talls with Billy Frampton and Nathan Murphy in the past have been more lockdown. So like I said, the overarching benefit of opting for someone like Mark Keane, if we can get him down back to Collingwood, is the fact that he can do much more than just lock down a certain player. So comparing Mark Keane's current season stats, which are 17 disposals, 7.5 intercept possessions, which leads the Crows, 2 intercept marks per game, which also leads the Crows, and 4.1 rebound 50s. If we compare that against Billy Frampton's collecting 11 disposals per game, which we know Billy Frampton isn't as trusted as much with the ball, or at least it's not his role so much as it is with Darcy Moore, Isaac Quaynor, Jeremy Howe, Brandon Maynard, when they're all, and still Sidebottom now, of course. So it's not comparing apples with apples necessarily. But when it comes to contested marks, Mark Keane is averaging close to 1 contested mark per game, whereas Billy Frampton's averaging half a contested mark per game. And over the course of the season, that does add up. And with Mark Keane averaging 2.1 intercept marks, that compares to Billy Frampton's 2.4 intercept marks per game this season, which is quite impressive on Mark Keane's end, considering Mark Keane is a couple inches short than Billy Frampton. Frampton's one would be those intercept marks, and the fact that Mark Keane can keep up with a player of Billy Frampton's stature just shows, like I said, how well versed and balanced Mark Keane is in the game of AFL footy. Comparing him against Nathan Murphy from his stats last year in 2023, Murphy collected 9.7 disposals per game, Mark Keane 17 disposals, again, different roles. 2.1 intercept marks versus 2.2 of Nathan Murphy's intercept marks, so sort of around the mark there, and that's what Nathan Murphy did so well as his spoils per game, which was massive. Mark Keane beats Nathan Murphy in intercept possession realm, 7.5 to Murphy's 6.2, and lastly, again, close to 1 contested mark per game for Mark Keane versus Nathan Murphy's half a contested mark per game. On the weekend, Mark Keane is coming up against the West Coast Eagles, And if you've seen them recently, players like Jake Waterman and Jack Darling are really finding form, more so the former rather than the latter in Jake Waterman. He's been absolutely outstanding. I think he's close to leading the Coleman, if not leading the Coleman, despite missing a game due to concussion. So I think a lot of Collingwood fans will have their eyes on that game to see what Mark Keane's really about, put him under the scope and see how he goes with the trade rumours now murmuring and having his name involved in that conversation. Sometimes it gives you a little bit of anxiety as a player because you know you need to perform to solidify that contract or ask for a greater contract than what was initially thought out to be, which is currently around the 600k mark. And like I said, Collingwood are going to have to give up some draft picks. And as far as, look, like I said, Billy Frampton, Charlie Dean, those are probably the players that Mark Keane will be contesting a spot for. You'd imagine Mark Keane would rise to the top by the time the season, I guess, commences next year if he was to come along, which is, it's healthy competition. It gives us versatility for Billy Frampton. If he needs to play forward, that's possible. It forces Charlie Dean to put his hand up furthermore and lift his game to another level, which is always healthy and important for a team that is aspiring to be a premiership team, a back-to-back team, or a dynasty team. And then maybe Jeremy Howe, if he doesn't retire, that maybe gives him the luxury to go forward if certain things don't work out in our forward line this year. If Mick Stade, for some reason, isn't available next year, it just gives us more versatility and variability within our team, which is why it's always good to have this sort of competition welcome to our club with open arms. And with Mark Keane having a pre-existing history with the Collingwood Football Club, probably helps his case and gives him more reason to come back and maybe give one back to Collingwood, considering we gave him an opportunity initially and unfortunately he had left us to go back home due to homesickness. So I would imagine they wouldn't have left on bad terms. So what do you guys think this does ultimately for Collingwood? Does it push out certain players? Does it force players to retire? Does it force a side bottom or a Jeremy Howe to take a lesser contract to allow a contract that comprises of close to or up to or maybe even more than $600,000? Are we willing to give up more draft picks, considering we gave up our first round draft pick this year for Lachie Schultz, who in my opinion, I would say he's done quite well. He's a pressure forward player at first, and then after that comes the goals and the disposals and everything as such. When you've got players like Bobby Hill and Jamie Elliott as your two small forwards who have the dazzle and the aerial capacity to take marks and kick goals, you're going to be asked to have a lesser role as far as what you do with the ball is concerned, and that's what Lachie Schultz is being asked to do right now. He's come to a big club. I know Fremantle are a big club within their own right in Perth, but coming to Collingwood is just the next level. So there is that, I guess, that transition period where you have to adapt to the environment, the pressure and the rigours of being a Collingwood player. Now, are we willing to do that and give up another first round pick or a second round pick for someone like Mark Keane? We know Mark Keane, is he proven? 19 games in AFL, yes, he's done very well, but do we need a larger sample size? Do we risk waiting till free agency, hoping that Mark Keane doesn't extend his contract beyond 2025 and try and pluck him in free agency and not have to give up any first round picks? These are some of the permutations and variables that I would consider. And then with Charlie Dean and Billy Frampton sort of holding their own at the moment and creating healthy competition and stability in the Collingwood backline since Nathan Murphy's retirement, do we honour those players and give them the keys to the backline in the future, seeing as they're both relatively young? And then we got players like Tujath as well, who's a half-back flanker and can play tall, similar to CJ from Hawthorn, can take aerial capacity, intercept marks. So there's a lot of things to consider if we want to bring Mark Keane in, but early signs of his performances thus far this season are really promising. And if Collingwood do happen to sign him up, then I'm more than happy to see him flourish in the black and white colours once again. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section. See you guys. Bye.